Hello and good morning to all our dear scholars, my team, and everyone joining us for this inspiring session today. A heartfelt welcome to yet another powerful podcast of the Buddy4Vidya Podcast series, an initiative by Buddy4Study, a platform established by Mr. Ashutosh Bandawal sir in 2011 with the mission to make education accessible to all. Till date, Buddy4Study has empowered 138,000 plus students through scholarships, education loans, and structured mentorship, bridging the gap between access and ambition.
So, taking this mission forward, we bring you Buddy for Vidya, a value based podcast and webinar series that brings together the exceptional leaders whose journeys, insights, and another character spark clarity, strength, and purpose in young's mind. And today, our episode is truly very special.
We are joined by one of the India's most distinguished mathematicians and an inspiring role model for scholars across the world.
Yes, it's an absolute honor to welcome Padam Shri Professor Sujatha Ramdorai ma'am, a globally renowned algebraic number theorist, Canada Research Chair at University of British Columbia, and a former professor at TIFR. She has served on the National Knowledge Commission, the Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Council, and has been recognized with some of the highest honors in the mathematics, including the Ramanujan Prize and the Santi Swaroop Bhatnagar Award.
Ma'am, we are truly privileged to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome to our podcast, ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to ask you, when you were working with the National Knowledge Commission and the Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Council, you were at the highest level of decisions making. How did you ensure that the voices of ordinary students and teachers always remained in your heart? And how did you stay grounded and connected to the grassroots?
Okay, so first of all, the National Knowledge Commission was only an advisory body. We did not have any implementation role. So our job was to study the education landscape. We had different verticals, education in different fields, from school level to higher education, management, engineering, design, and medical. We had to make recommendations on how do we convert India to a knowledge economy, especially at that time. This was 20 years back. India had a very high demographic profile. There were lots of youngsters in India compared to the rest of the world, and we wanted that to be translated into a demographic dividend by making India an innovation hub and also ensuring that we produced quality manpower across sectors. And we made a list of recommendations covering school education right up to higher education, PhD. By the time we submitted our recommendations, there was a change in power, and then I don't know how much of it got implemented, but I can tell you a few things which I'm very happy about. So all the new ICERs and IIT, those were a result of our recommendation. And also the other nice thing was one of our recommendations was that the channels like National Geographic, Discovery Channel, all of those should be made available in as many Indian languages as possible. So these are the two solid outcomes from the recommendations. There were a whole lot of recommendations. We did a lot of work. We consulted with teachers and students across the country. So there's no question of being grounded and so on, because it was an eye-opener to travel through India and see the different conditions under which students learned, and also teachers in government schools. We tend to paint all the government schools in one stroke, but for us it was a real eye-opener. We complain about the government schools, but if you actually go to those government schools and see the conditions under which the teachers are so dedicated and performing a good job, some of the teachers, I won't say all of them, then that will change your perspective about government schools.
I'm sure you will.
So, coming to next, ma'am, you began your journey with mathematics in very simple surroundings. First at St. Joseph College and through correspondence at Annamalai University. So,
Yes.
how did these beginnings shape your love for learning and help you stay humble even when you achieved such a great success later?
According to me, and this is also what we learn if you really learn from the Indian tradition, you learn that the more knowledge you accumulate, the less you know, because you realize how vast knowledge is and how you can absorb so little. And the more you learn, the more you discover, you also learn how much more there is to learn and how much more there is to be discovered.
Yes, ma'am.
So that cannot but make you humble. So that's my answer.
Yes, sir.
It's truly a wonderful answer. Ma'am, you helped create the Ramanujan Math Park in Andhra Pradesh for children. What moved you to dedicate your time and energy to building something for students instead of focusing only on advanced research and global recognition?
So again, this was one of the things that came out of my years at the National Knowledge Commission and also being in the advisory role. I had met students across the world, and they would say that they became a scientist or that they got interested in whatever field, in chemistry or physics or biology, because they went to the science museum in their town or wherever and spent their time there, and then that inspired them to to pursue science, or that kindled their interest in science and so on. And I realized that we don't have anything like that for mathematics. Mathematics, as I mean, one common thing, it's two extreme views. Either they'll say, I love mathematics, or they'll say, I hate mathematics. I was afraid of mathematics. These are the common reaction. And I wanted to create something where people would see the beauty of mathematics and see how it is used across different fields and how so many things are answered through mathematics. I didn't want it to become a museum because most often museums are associated with boredom, right? So mathematics museum makes it doubly boring in people's minds. So we wanted to create an outdoor park where children and students and teachers come, explore, ask questions and learn. So
Yes,
that was the
ma'am.
idea. But more than Ramanujan Math Park, I don't know if you know this. This was long before there was talk of education, technology, COVID, everything. This is almost 20 years old. 20 again, after my Knowledge Commission years, I realized that there is this constraint as far as access is concerned. We have very few digital resources. So I created presentations based on our NCRT textbook, which is freely available. This is the website, publicize it. This is for
Okay, ma'am.
students to learn all the chapters in the old NCRT textbooks. You'll find a PDF of the NCRT textbook and chapter wise presentation from class 6 to class 10 in the form of PowerPoint. I learned that children engage with learning. Nobody reads the textbooks anymore.
It's a fact.
Yeah. So this was another thing I created long before COVID, long before people even had this idea of digital resources in India,
Yes,
free of
ma'am.
Yes,
cost.
yes, ma'am. Surely you have. People say that you learn more while seeing the pictures, while you read the textbooks. So your effort to make presentation in all the NCRT textbooks shows how much you love and how much you love for others to learn.
Ma'am, like you often say that mathematics is not just about numbers, but about finding truth and beauty. So, ma'am, if we as a student want to discover that same beauty in our studies, so what should we look for or what practice should we do in our daily learnings?
First, don't be scared of mathematics. And then the pleasure that you get when you understand and then when you can solve a problem. See, what happens typically is often the teachers are constrained because they don't have access. They are also constrained for time. They have to finish the syllabus, etc., etc. So learning is not a joyful experience. And once you create this exploratory method, children understanding, and then once they understand, they discover that they can solve the problems. Then that makes them engage with the subject. And then once they're engaged, they get curious. And then they learn more. And then that becomes a continuous process. And I mean, our textbooks are good and people don't believe it. But many of my colleagues who are now professors in top universities in the United States, when they learned that I was creating these presentations based on India's textbooks, they're all math professors, mind you, in top colleges in the United States. They wrote to me saying, I want the Indian textbooks because my daughter or my son is learning here in school, and according to me, it's taught very badly. Right? So our
Yes,
textbooks
ma'am.
are good. It is just that we need to train the teachers more. We need to make teacher training broader and also classroom discussions better.
Yes, ma'am. Surely, ma'am. We are taking this forward. I just wanted to ask you one thing. There was a Gurukul system in our which our ancestors taught, where the guru would sit in the middle and the students would surround him. What do you think changed from them and now? And what are the things you would like to change for the students and the teachers' relationship for a better learning environment so that every student voice is heard? And as you said, we need a broader term for teachers. Do you think there are times when teachers can't understand the point of view of students and they should like interact more?
That's definitely true, but teachers are also, I mean, see, from my generation to now, I don't know how you view it, but the respect in society for teachers is gone. The attitude is you've become a teacher because you couldn't become anything else. That respect for guru is gone. They are not paid well,
Yes,
and then you expect the world out of them. That's fundamentally there's something wrong in our society when we have lost. We talk of guru, we talk of
yes, ma'am.
gurukul, but we don't treat them with the same respect.
Ma'am,
And once you do that, I think teachers will automatically, and then the teacher to student ratio, look at our classes, they are
yes,
so
ma'am.
large. You can't blame the teachers, you can't blame the students.
Surely,
The
ma'am.
government should invest more money in education, especially in primary education, secondary education.
Yes,
Definitely.
ma'am.
Ma'am, during your PhD days at TIFR, you must have faced the tough moments when you felt stuck or doubtful. So, what thoughts or habit helped you to find the courage to keep going, and how the students like us can use that in our own studies when we feel the same way?
Yeah, you have to have patience and perseverance when you decide to do research. And especially in mathematics, it can mean struggling with a problem for a long time. But our TIFR, that's the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, in those days, I mean, today it's a different world. All of us have a mobile phone. There's an information overload. But it was not so in those days. The library was excellent in TIFR, and just going to the library and looking through the books and then reading research papers, all that access that mattered. I was lucky to have an excellent PhD advisor and my grand advisor, that is my advisor's advisor, Professor Sridharan. They were all very good mentors, very good teachers, and I think that atmosphere helps. And we had excellent visitors. We had excellent scientists from around the world visiting TIFR and giving lectures, and with whom you could
Yes, ma'am.
directly interact, ask questions. So that kind of atmosphere makes a big difference.
Definitely, ma'am.
Ma'am, as you said, like many of us in school sometimes feel scared of mathematics. There are extreme opinions. Either you love it a lot or you feel scared of it, as if it's your enemy. So, what simple steps can students change their relationship with mathematics and try to explore it beyond?
Understand and then practice. These are the two things. Understand the concepts. And today you can't blame the teacher. I mean, there's such an overload of resources. If you're truly interested, you can learn at your own pace, at
Yes, ma'am. Through
almost
YouTube.
at little cost. And then the thing about mathematics or any learning is hard. So I don't believe it when people say make learning fun.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Learning
ma'am.
is hard. It has to come with discipline and so on. But it can be joyful. And then mathematics is one subject where you need to understand. And once you understand, then you practice.
Sure, ma'am.
Yes.
So, ma'am, like many of the students today feel stressed during the examinations. So, ma'am, what simple practices can help us to stay calm and balanced in those moments? And for those who dream to doing a research or a PhD in the future, and what kind of attitude and the mindset they should be having so that they start building now to stay strong in such a long journey?
Yeah, discipline, patience, perseverance. And then, ultimately, there's so many things in life which you have no control over, right? So you have to take
So,
things that come your way, but patience helps. And then, as far as exams are concerned, tell that to my students, never lag behind. You shouldn't be more than two classes behind what is being done in the class,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So if you are more than two classes behind, then the teacher's explaining something you're not understanding, and then the backlog increases. So then that also creates a wall. Then you don't want to engage with the subject. Then you perform badly in the exams. So there has to be discipline. You have to be up to speed with what is being done in class. So don't lag behind. So work hard every day. Set aside. I'm sure everybody spends 1 hour, at least minimum of 1 hour on their mobile phone or on their device.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So
yes,
ma'am.
I
ma'am.
tell I tell my students, my grandchildren also, the amount of time you spend on a device, spend the same amount of time or double that time reading,
Yes, ma'am.
writing.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you must have heard of the exams like JEE or NEET, which happens in India. And even while working on those long college projects, like while you study, you're always sitting on a table for long hours. So, what should they do in their daily life so that they are not mentally exhausted by all those pressures and thus, like whatever their parents say or whatever the society says, the norms and everything?
Take a break every hour, go for a walk for 10 minutes, and do some exercise every day. And in fact, there are lots of simple exercises you can do even when you're sitting. You can Google and find out, moving your knees, moving your legs, moving your hands. So keep doing those. But apart from that, I think it's important to take a break, walk around for 10 minutes every hour,
Yes,
get
ma'am.
a breath of fresh air, and do some serious exercise, like running twice or thrice a week, or weightlifting, or going to a, I won't say going to a gym because I've never been to a gym, but maybe yoga or some other kind of focusing exercises.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, we all are a student, and we often feel that old age people only do this kind of yoga and all practices. So this is the kind of mindset that we are having right now. So is it true, or what is your opinion about it?
I don't think so. I think yoga helps you, especially some of the breathing exercises. There's also scientific proof now that breathing exercises calm your secondary nervous system,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
and also helps you relax,
Okay, ma'am. So,
and
ma'am,
then helps in improve strength training, and most importantly helps you focus.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, for
Yes, ma'am.
mathematics, the focus is a key thing that we should have to follow and that we have to look after. So, ma'am, you have received some of the highest honors in mathematics, like the Ramanujan Prize, the Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Award, and the Padam Shri. Like for a young student who dreamed of excellence in own studies or in own field, so what skills or the qualities should they begin building early, and how can they make sure that this early success does not go to their head?
I mean, like for the second part, I already said what I had to say, because the more you learn, the more you discover, you learn how little you know or how much more there is to be discovered. So, humility has to be built, and this is something we learn even in the Indian tradition,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
be
Yes, ma'am.
humble, to be humble and modest. These are qualities which are appreciated. Okay, so honestly, I mean, awards are nice, but they shouldn't become the small sole focus in your life. And
Yes,
for
ma'am.
me, more than recognizing me, I think these are awards for mathematics,
Yes, ma'am.
for the subject.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, as a young student, or when you were young, what was your first inner calling, or what did you thought was your thing when you first started studying mathematics? Was it a second grade or a third grade or an early
So
love
it
for
was around the
mathematics?
fourth grade. It was around the fourth grade. I discovered that I really liked languages
Yes, ma'am.
and mathematics. And then later, when I went to, it used to be called pre-university in those days, that is before you enter university, the 11th and 12th. Then I
Yes, ma'am.
discovered that I liked chemistry, and then it became a choice for me whether I should do math or chemistry. But then I realized, I spoke to somebody who was senior to me in college,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
the that person asked me if I liked abstract thinking or if I liked thinking, doing things with my hands, that is experiments in the lab and so on. I said I liked abstract thinking. So he said, then just do mathematics.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, how do you think how important is with asking around and like knowing people and like you went to your senior, so how important is it to like visit people and ask them things and get mentorship? How
No,
important is it for
it's very
students?
important now, especially now there's so many choices to be made. Whereas
Yes,
when
ma'am.
I was younger, it wasn't. It was, if you're interested in studies, then you just studied as much as you could, as far as you could. Whereas today there are
Yes,
so
ma'am.
many distractions, there are so many other choices. So mentorship is very important, and also knowing the opportunities, that's important. There was nothing like that in my days. I didn't even know that one could, there was something called research in mathematics,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
I'd heard of chemistry, I'd heard of physics, and computer science was just developing at that time. But I never knew that there was something called research in mathematics. It was, I knew somebody who had done their master's in chemistry and then learned from them. Otherwise, I thought that you study, and I knew that I wanted to keep doing mathematics as much as possible. And I thought then you asked people and they said, oh, you do your BSc, then you do MSc. Then I said, what? Then you get a job as a teacher or a professor, not even a professor, lecturer in college. And I thought,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
good, sounds good. But then I learned when I was, I think, towards the end of my high school, I learned that you could do research in mathematics.
Yes, ma'am. Because right now there are so many options available in the market through YouTube, and people keep influencing students' thoughts, and they use them as a target.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but in all this, you see, I don't know how much of the student's own passion is lost and how much the student becomes influenced and a follower, right? Rather than
yes, ma'am.
getting attuned with their own inner calling.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, you have mentioned about this PhD and research work. So, ma'am, in research and leadership, like how important is honesty and integrity?
Absolutely important.
Okay, ma'am.
And again, these are not values anymore in our society. It pains me very much.
Yeah, then this is a fact. Ma'am, the main motivating body for Vidya is the same. That whatever the qualities and the whatever the ancient value system that we were having in past days, that seems that they are disappeared from our society. Think that value system, that quality system that we want to inculcate in the today's youth by doing this kind of podcast with such people like you who has some done very remarkable job in their journey. So this is the main motto of this body for Vidya to motivate and to inculcate this value system to all the upcoming youth of this country. Yes, Anshika.
Ma'am, one thing I wanted to know that as someone who has achieved so much, while you say all your awards are for mathematics, but whenever we do Wikipedia or search about you, it all comes to you. So, what would you define as success, and what would you define failure to be?
No, for me, there are so many things that people have achieved much more than me. So I don't think I'm a great achiever. Even if I am, I know that there are people who have achieved much more than me. And I was brought up, my grandmother you always used to tell us that, when you are hankering after something, when you want more than what you have, then think of all the people who have less than what you have
Yes, ma'am.
in terms of material things. But she would also add, when it comes to knowledge, think of all the people who know more than you and aspire to become like that.
Definitely,
So
ma'am.
that's something I
Yes,
try to follow in my life even
yes,
today.
ma'am. We
It's
will also try to follow that, like those teachings of your grandmother, and will also try to deliver these all the things that you have delivered to all the scholars of Buddy for Study and also in the today's youth. So, coming to the next question, ma'am, you have given back to the society through education, and as you have mentioned, the project like Maths Park. So, ma'am, what do you think or what do you believe that the service to others is as important as the personal success?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if I had the time, energy, and space, I still do it. I try to teach the poor kids who live in my neighborhood. But I wish I had more time for that.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wish all these poor students had more access to more resources. I find it shocking that the students go to private schools, which fine, I don't mean that they should all go to government schools. They go to private schools. These are, very ordinary poor children whose parents are, daily wage earners or they're working in somebody's house. They go to a school, they pay the fees, and at the end of the year, the school takes back their books. Whereas ideally, the books should stay with the children because when they have their summer vacation, that's another time. These are first generation learners. These kids are going to school for the first time. They are the first generation. They are lucky if they have one of their parents can teach them,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So when there is summer or when there's the holidays, if they have the books, it will give them time to go over all the material. Otherwise, what happens typically is they have forgotten everything by the time they go to the next school year. So I wish there were spaces where children could go learn more, free learning spaces in the cities and also in the
Yes.
villages everywhere. In fact, that was one of the recommendations of the National Knowledge Commission to make the village panchayat a learning space where teachers, parents, everybody assemble and learn. There would be a computer and then teachers, students, everybody learn, which would be preloaded, not with infinite access to internet. Of course, at that time, there wasn't so much content on the internet, but material related to, let's say, health, rights, and education, which the teachers, students, parents could use.
On the basic information that every human being should need or should acknowledge.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, ma'am, we would move to a lighter but the meaningful segment. It is going to be a rapid fire round. I would ask you a question and you would have to answer it in just one or two words. Uh, Growing up, who was your favorite mathematician?
Ramanujan.
Ramanujan. A book that inspired you?
Lots of them, but Catcher in the Rye.
Cancer in the right. Your childhood dream profession?
Professor, like I said, I had no idea of the kinds of profession, but if I had had, then it would be a researcher. But at that time, I thought teacher.
Okay, ma'am. A habit you never miss?
uh, Walking every day, walking and
A
reading
pl-
a bit.
okay. A place you feel at peace?
My office or my desk.
Your proudest award or memory in life?
No, really, I mean, I think the first award I got was the Young Scientist Award, and I think that was the proudest. But I try hard not to get swayed by these awards and call it my proudest moment and so on. In fact, when I had to give a thank you speech, I think the first time they asked me to say a few words about who inspired me, who I would like to thank, and all that. So, of course, I thank my teachers, my family, but I also thank the woman who worked for me at home. Because I said, unless I had that support, I wouldn't be able to. Because, when we say the highest prize, you forget the number of people who might have achieved it if they had got those pathways. There are so many women, girls, men waiting in the queue to get their ration, waiting in the queue to get water. If all of them were also in education, maybe they would have done better than me.
That's also another dimension we don't know yet. Like the things with the coincidence that like I've read somewhere that every decision you make creates two pathways and you don't know the possibility which one would take you where.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what one mantra you live by?
Try to do better and try to be positive.
And what would happiness mean to you?
Paper, pen, and the time to think about my problem.
And ma'am, one piece of advice to the youth of country.
Stay true to yourself. Don't be swayed. Introspect, reflect,
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely,
and
ma'am.
learn to be grateful and appreciative.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was quick and honest and was deeply inspiring, just like your journey. Yes, Aman.
So, ma'am, now coming to the last segment of this podcast, now we have the scholars and they would love to ask the same questions from you. Ma'am, they are eager to engage with you, whatever you have learned, and they want to learn directly from your experiences. So, ma'am,
Sure.
let's open the floor for our audience and scholars. Please keep your questions short and crisp so that we can accommodate more voices like you. So, first of all, uh, yeah. So, ma'am, first we have Riya Mandal from IIT Kharagpur, first year student and research scholar in number theory. And yeah, welcome, Ria.
Hi,
Thank you.
Ria.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. I am Ria. I am
Yeah.
currently a research scholar in number theory. So my question is, how to explain the work of a number theorist to other people who have less knowledge in mathematics, and they are always curious about to know what we are actually doing, and I can't answer properly them in a
What
simplest way.
kind of what kind of number theory are you doing?
Actually, ma'am, I'm a first year scholar, so I'm currently studying the modular forms, analytic number theory, and algebraic number
Okay.
theory.
So don't even think of explaining all those, but here's a simple thing that you can explain to them. I'm sure most of the people know about prime numbers,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So if
Yes,
they
ma'am.
don't, you can explain what prime numbers are and then they'll understand. So you can say there are
Yes, ma'am.
lots of these simple problems, and when you're trying to understand these simple problems, they'll ask you why, what is so great. But you can say, see, prime numbers, when people discovered prime numbers or when they thought about prime numbers, we now know that there were different civilizations around the world which thought of prime numbers. At that
Yes, ma'am.
time, they did it out of curiosity. But today, all the internet banking, every crypto system that you use
Yes, ma'am.
for security is based on prime numbers,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So say that you're working on problems which mathematics is always like that. The results in mathematics stay alive for a long time and find applications in different areas. Like your mobile phone, the communications use a lot of mathematics which was done hundreds of years. And people never thought that one day there will be a mobile phone, there will be communication, and it will be used there.
Yes, ma'am.
So I hope, Ria, you got your answer.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, Ria.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. So, ma'am, next we have Priya from Government Degree College, Harda. He's doing MSc in first year mathematics. So, Priya,
Okay, so there's somebody, Priya, okay, there is written a long message. I did not come from a very strong mathematical background. I studied in a government school and later a college where proper guidance in mathematics was often missing. But I was determined. I even worked for almost a year from 2023 to buy a computer. Once I got it, my learning completely changed and my curiosity really exploded. I recently completed my BSc in math and I'm now in the first year of my MSc. My interest started in pure mathematics, but I broadened into statistics, blah, blah, etc. Challenge I face is not motivation or balance. Sometimes I can study mathematics, pulled into my, so how can I keep myself strongly grounded in core mathematics, but while also preparing for broader interdisciplinary research? And so one suggestion I have is find a problem which is interdisciplinary nature in the sense it has been solved, but it has been solved using various disciplines. And one component of that will surely be mathematics. So then try to understand that mathematics and also the other parts of the interdisciplinary, the other subjects that are necessary there.
Yes, Priya.
Okay, but focus on one problem and then figure that out. There might be black boxes, but try to understand the problem and its solution end to end. There might be black boxes in between in the solution, which you might want to open or might not want to open. But if you're interested in mathematics, then open the part of mathematics black boxes and understand them.
Okay, Priya, I hope you got your answer. So next we have Kumar Chavan from Maharashtra Education Society for Senior College Pune. So Priya, okay, Chavan. Yes, Chavan, you can ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much. My question is, many students feel maths is hard from childhood. How much teaching technique influence this, and what can make maths more enjoyable?
So, I think the textbooks are very good. For instance, now there are these new textbooks. Has any of you looked at the new school textbooks? We worked very hard to make it, more engaging with both with the pictures and also activities in the class. And there will also be a teacher's handbook. And I think the idea is to also get teachers to explain various concepts and post them in the form of videos. So hopefully all this will make the teacher's job in the class easier. You can watch the video with the students and then ask the students to ask you questions. And then there are also tips on how to get the students to be more curious. Yeah, look, somebody's written, I think it's Pranav who's written, Priya who's written, the NCRT mathematics books are very good. So you just have to follow the books.
But we learn from our Maharashtra SSC books, so
But they're also good. This will be translated, this will be available in every language.
okay.
Ma'am, next we have Banod Pramod.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Pramod. Currently, I am pursuing, like, I had completed my intermediate from social welfare, Telangana state. And currently, I am preparing for the NEET UG 2026 to pursue as a MBBS aspirant. Yes, ma'am. My question is, what advice would you give young students, especially girls, who are afraid of mathematics in present generation, like the students who are currently completed their SSC? So this is my
Don't be
question.
afraid. Go back if you haven't understood. Go back. Now there are lots of resources. Go back to your school textbooks. I mean, I gave you my own this gyanom.org where
Yes.
you get all the textbooks and chapter by chapter presentation from class 6 to class 10. Try to understand your mathematics and then you will see that you're not afraid of mathematics anymore. See, the main problem that students feel that they don't like mathematics or that they're afraid of mathematics is because they haven't understood the concepts. And that understanding, you have to work a bit harder. You have to, engage with the subject a little more. And then, for instance, I'm sure you know, but mathematical biology is such an important subject now in the many parts of the world. Mathematics, and it's a pity that biologists say, "Oh, I wish I knew more mathematics." I'm at least in India. I learned that the students in ICER have now realized that, and many of the biologists, those who want to be biology researchers, they try to take a few courses in mathematics as well. And mathematical biology, believe me, is it's growing so fast and it's a very serious subject. You need to know not just biology, but if you understand mathematics, then you realize that your approach to biology is enriched by applying mathematical concepts. Let's say in designing stents, because you have to understand how the blood flows in the veins and not everybody's
Exactly.
veins are the same.
Exactly, ma'am.
So that's where you need more interdisciplinary exposure.
Thank you, ma'am.
I hope Pramod you got your answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you, ma'am. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your journey, for your views, and for the website that you created for the presentations of from 6 to 10
The
for your
idea
inputs.
was it's common minimum learning, what somebody should know in mathematics. So at the end of every chapter, there are a few problems which are solved.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then there are also 4 or 5 questions whose answers are provided, but not, and hints are provided, but not solved. And the idea is any student who goes through that, they solve all these questions, the 10 questions from the chapter, without cheating.
Yes, ma'am.
Then that means that you have understood that chapter.
Definitely, ma'am. And thank you so much for joining us on this inspiring podcast today. And
And we will make sure that we carry forward your learnings, the humility you talked about, the
And I
on
was just struck, you have that at the background, Vidya Dadati.
yes,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, Vidya Dadati Vinyam.
Yeah,
And
so you shouldn't ask me that question. That means that you don't believe in that slogan yourself, right? You should be telling me that that's the reason
Yes, ma'am.
that
Definitely,
every
ma'am.
scholar has to be humble.
Yes, ma'am. That
yes, ma'am,
is a very
I
famous.
believe every scholar has to be humble and that value should be inculcated in them. That's why we started with the slogan Vidya Dadati Vinyam Vinyadyati Patrata Patratva Dhanmatmavti Dhanadharmam Tata Sukha.
Exactly.
This is a slok that we live by, that we abide by. The whole philosophy of Buddy4Vidya revolves around this slok from Gita. So it's a very
Yeah.
closest to us. Vidya Dadat Vinyam, knowledge brings you humility. So that's why we are starting every podcast with this knowledge brings humility theme.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming to our podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much,
the
ma'am.
best.
Okay.